Hello and welcome to the build-up in association with Ladbrokes. I'm your host, David Gillick, and again, I'm joined by Ladbrokes ambassador and former Ireland international, Stephen Ferris. Stevie, how's the form? You must be a happy man after last week.
Yeah, flipping heck. I didn't see it coming, to be honest.
You didn't? You didn't?
I didn't. No, I'm not sure too many people seen it coming, especially like the All Blacks hadn't been beaten in Dunedin in years and years. Really good venue for them. Obviously a dry ball under the roof. The weather was miserable outside, but the quality was unbelievable. I know we'll maybe delve into it a little bit more about the yellow cards and the controversial red card and everything else. But like the first point that I want to make is it really feels, and it's not just Ireland here. Like France beat the All Blacks recently. You know, South Africa have had their number a few times over the last decade. It feels like this aura of the unbeatable All Blacks is slowly starting to fade away. The more times the Northern Hemisphere teams get a bit of change out of them, the days of Richie McCaw and Jerome Kano and Dan Carter and Kevin Mialamu and the Franks brothers, it just feels that there's a change in the tide. And it's brilliant to watch. Like it's it really is gripping stuff every Saturday morning when you turn on the TV, and even not even just Ireland, David. The likes of England playing against Australia, Wales beating South Africa. So long may that continue leading towards the World Cup.
Is there anything you put that down to? Like, is it that maybe Northern Hemisphere teams have got a bit of a sniff and they've kind of that's created an element of momentum, or is it a training element? Is it the kind of, what is it? Maybe is that gap closing, and why? Why do you think?
I think, obviously the All Blacks were blessed. I think it was a once in a generation, some of the players that they produced at that time, and they were all playing together, usually staying fit as well. And yeah, they were the pinnacle of international rugby, what they were achieving. But for me, it's the style of rugby that Ireland are now playing is causing them huge problems. Like Ireland have scored the most tries out of any international team this season across the whole year. New Zealand are second. So, if you're going to beat New Zealand, you have to score points. You can't just go, 3-6-9. Let's hold on for dear life here. One loose kick, and before you know it, you're underneath your sticks. So, the style of rugby that Ireland are playing, if they match them physically like they did last Saturday, I know, with a couple of players that they had off, and the troubles that they had with their tight head prop having to go off as well. Of course, Ireland were going to get parity there. So yeah, if they can match them there, then leading into it's a 9-point handicap. 9 points. It was 13 points the week before when Ireland won, and I think the first week it was 11 points. So again, it's very, very tight, and I'm expecting this test match to be very, very cagey and close, but at the same time, both teams to score a couple of tries and make it a real spectacle for everybody to see.
So looking back at the win, history made, as we said, so I suppose we spoke about it last week, and there was a change, Mark Hansen came in there as well. But when you look at the game last Saturday, from your view, what worked? What was the thing that maybe changed it? And I know you mentioned there was yellow cards and all the rest of it, but from an Irish perspective, what really worked?
Yeah, well, I've written a blog this week for Ladbrokes that I do going into most big test matches, and in that the blog is that Ireland didn't miss as many tackles. They kept Johnny Sexton on the pitch for the majority of the match. They were clinical and they kept their discipline. And if you flick it over, what killed the All Blacks? It was their discipline. That's why the scoreboard reflects, the points difference in the game was just because New Zealand are giving away so many penalties, a couple of yellow cards, a red card. International rugby is difficult enough playing 15 on 15 against the top 2, 3, 4, 5 sides in the world. Never mind playing with 14 or 13, or it should have been 12. The way the ruling is with the All Blacks, the way they had to go to scrums, and the referee made a couple of boo-boos. But Johnny referenced it, I think, in his post-match interview, saying that they were on top when it was 15 versus 15 anyway. And he's 100% right. They were on top. They'd done their homework. They got the party in the set piece, and they brought a real clinical edge to their attack. So more of the same this weekend. But you learn from your mistakes, you learn from the errors that you make, and there's absolutely no question, David, that this All Blacks team are not going to be the same team that faced Ireland last week. They're going to be better. They're going to be sharper. They're going to play the referee more. The Sam Cane versus Peter O'Mahony duel is going to be ridiculously good. Like, Peter O'Mahony standing at the end of the game and more or less saying to Sam Cane that you're a shit. Well, I could have forgotten his name, the best seven ever, Richie McCaw. Why could I not remember his name? You're a shit, Richie McCaw. Like, is that an insult, or is that actually like, to be classed in the same sentence even as Richie McCaw? Maybe take a positive out of that. But like, I thought obviously the match was won at that stage, and it's very easy for Pete just to come out with something like that. But I hope Pete isn't eating his own words like come the end of the match, because that'll be talked about in the dressing room. That'll fuel the New Zealand fire this week. The way he tried to embarrass the New Zealand captain on his own home turf, and like, Pete's a smart guy. He knows the ref Mike was going to pick that up. He knows there's people in the crowd that can lip read. Like, do you know what I mean? It was thrown out there, and New Zealanders might think it was disrespectful. I thought it was quite funny, and I know a lot of the Irish fans thought it was a little funny. But when you're winning by 12 or 13 points with a minute or two on the clock, it's easy enough said. But it's going to be a different ball game altogether on Saturday morning, 8:05.
Yeah, and everyone's going to be looking forward to that. But before we kind of jump into that, and like from an Irish perspective and some of the changes and the rest of it, Tuesday morning, another game, Maori All Blacks. Like, is there anything like, say, Farrell and everyone can take from that? Again, it was like you would look at it from a kind of maybe a poor start, but again, they came through. Obviously Saturday, kind of in the minds of those players, a lot of fringe players got runs out and things like that. But is there anything that the management, the players can take from that going into, say, this Saturday?
You know what? Like, when the rain was coming down, the boys were running out at the start of the match. The weather conditions in Wellington, as the locals call it, the Cape Tin, it's a big cricket ground there. That's where the Lions played their second and third tests in 2017. Definitely the third one anyway, where they got the draw in the end. No, the third one was in Auckland. So yeah, it's a real weird stadium. Like, it's like an AFL stadium, the way it's, the fans are quite far away from the pitch. Yeah. There's not huge height. Like, that's where we get stuffed in the 2011 Rugby World Cup quarter-final against Wales. Not particularly good memories of the place, but like, when I seen that weather coming down, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be, stop, start, scrums, penalties all over the place. But the rain sort of eased up, and it was a really entertaining game. It was a brilliant game of rugby. Both sides threw it around. A couple of lovely tries by the Maori All Blacks. Brilliant to see Keith Earls captain Ireland for the very first time. He's going to have to back up an 80-minute performance. He's on the bench this weekend, so hopefully nobody picks up a knock, especially in the back three for Ireland at the weekend, because Keith will have to come on and back that up. But yeah, I think Andy Farrell and his coaching staff will be able to take a lot out of it. Young Prendergast in the back row threw himself around. The scrum, yes, of course, the scrum was under a bit of pressure, and the guys were sucking a bit of diesel. But I think in all, Kieran Frawley come out of it with all the plaudits. Started the game at 10. People are talking about who's Johnny Sexton's successor in the 10 jersey. Maybe it is Frawley, maybe it's not. But some of the boys put their hand up and said, "Look, I can play at this level." And I think it was a really good victory, because the Maoris completely put it up to Ireland.
Yeah, and it is important that those players that you mentioned get the run there. We spoke about that last week, that experience, the traveling, get those games. And like you said, play in difficult stadiums and difficult conditions. But look, it is all about this weekend. You take what we spoke about last week, and they've got the win. It's now the big decider. How do they go into this game, with everything, and even the kind of the comments that were thrown around, as you mentioned there, from O'Mahony, like, that's arguably maybe going to fuel the New Zealand fire. But like, what do Ireland need to do to close out this series with the win? What can they do? And to reference as well, like, Bundiaki's coming in, so there is that change for Ringrose. You mentioned Keith Earls on the bench. What do they need to do?
well, they need to keep their heads. They don't want to get caught up in a feisty 15, 20 minutes and the All Blacks get underneath their skin. The discipline, if you see the other games as well happening in the Southern Hemisphere, in South Africa, New Zealand, or Australia, like the teams that are giving away the most penalties are obviously putting the most pressure back onto themselves, and most teams are capitalising off the back of that. And Ireland have got to be really cute. I think they've played the referees really well. Correct me if I'm wrong. It might be. I think it's Wayne Barnes this weekend. Huge experience, vast experience, in internationals and World Cups and Six Nations and absolutely everything. So play the referee, be smart, don't play in your own half, don't kick loosely like they showed last week. And if they get their chances, they got to take them. Like the most possession in the first game, most possession in the second game. And if they can continue to do that, they will create chances. Like they will. Ireland have just been so good with their attacking setup, the way they have the pods, options inside, outside, and out the back. And generally, like I think it was Tadhg Beirne last week, they were out the back, out the back, out the back. And then all of a sudden, Tadhg Beirne hit a short line, and the ball was just popped to Tadhg Beirne, and the New Zealand defence overread it because of being out the back the previous 2 or 3 times. And Tadhg Beirne went 40 or 50 yards. I think it was actually that nearly led to the penalty try because somebody was taken out off the ball. So, it's just a variation in the Ireland attack. Just keep the hold of it, play with no fear. Like, let's face it, David, all the pressure is on New Zealand. Like the whole country will be in mourning if New Zealand lose at the weekend. Their head coach, Ian Foster, will probably get sacked. The players will, maybe 4 or 5 of the players will never be seen again. Like, I can't remember, 1994 or something, the last time the All Blacks lost a series at home. Some crazy like that. So they cannot lose this game. And with pressure, some teams fold, but usually the All Blacks come out on top. So we'll see.
Yeah, and like that's what I was going to kind of talk to you about, is that it's home soil for them. And, everything you mentioned there is going to be a weight on them. But if you could maybe imagine yourself tugging out for the All Blacks this weekend against Ireland, what's their game plan? What are they going to try to do to stop Ireland? Because let's be honest, there is respect there. They know how good Ireland are and, how they frustrated them and all the rest of it. So for them, what are they going to try to do to stop Ireland? Is there any kind of key points that, from their perspective, that they're going to target?
Like, New Zealand have to hold on to possession. Like, you watch New Zealand over the past 20 years, like it doesn't matter if it's South Africa, Ireland, Japan, Namibia, who they're playing, they hold on to the ball. They cause teams so much trouble. They make line breaks all the time. They have loads of offloads. Like, against Ireland, they kick away a lot of possession. It's almost like, we'll get out of our half here. That's not like the All Blacks. The All Blacks are run the ball from all over the place, and that's why they've been world renowned, and we've talked about it every week, arguably the best team in the world, because they can hurt any team from anywhere in the pitch. And I think they just not take more risks, but just go back to what they all do for their clubs week in and week out, and back themselves. And when they do kick the ball, they got to be more accurate. They got to kick to contest. Try and put Ireland under a little bit more pressure there. Hugo Keenan's had a bit of an arm ride the last couple of weeks. Armchair ride, sorry, the last couple of weeks. So go out and express yourselves. Go out and put on a show for the fans and the public to right a few wrongs from the previous week. And as much as I got to go with my head, like I just feel that Ireland will not go down without a fight. They won't go down without a fight, but I just don't think they're going to win this test match. I think it's going to be very tight, 6 to 10 points. Again, in my blog, I've hardly got a score prediction right, because when there's yellow cards and red cards flying about all over the game, it's so difficult to call matches. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was another red card or yellow card this weekend. So very difficult to call. But I'm going to go for a New Zealand win. But Ireland to come home, land in Dublin, beating the Maori All Blacks, beating New Zealand in Dunedin. I think that's a really good 4 or 5 weeks away down under.
Yeah, well, look, you were wrong last week. I'm not going to rub it into you, but you were wrong. Let's hope be around this week, because it'd be great to see. It would be fantastic for obviously, the momentum and everything going. Looking forward to the World Cup and stuff like that. But to do it against the All Blacks in New Zealand will be it'd be amazing. So well, let's see how that kind of all pans out. But as always, pleasure to chat to you. And remember, if you are betting on anything this weekend, please gamble responsibly. Visit gamblecare.ie for more information. And we'll be back to you again with the build-up, brought to you by Ladbrokes.